This is the Roots and All podcast, and I'm your host, Sarah Wilson. Join me as I talk about all aspects of gardening with some of the top horticulturists from around the world. Hello and welcome to this episode, where I'm joined by RAF Warrant Officer Pete Welsh. Alongside a successful military career and being a key part of an RHS award-winning community garden, Pete has navigated mental health challenges, finding, as many do, solace and positivity in the garden. From the therapeutic calm of growing food to the transformative power of community gardens, Pete's is a story of resilience, growth, and the parallels between nurturing plants and oneself.
I've been in the Air Force 25 years, so I joined when I was 17 years old, originally as an aircraft engineer. And then when I was posted up in Scotland, I really enjoyed the outdoors and I became a mountain rescue volunteer. And I was on call for them a lot of the time. I did a lot of training, so my love for outdoors began really up there. It was a fantastic place. And then I went and became a full-time mountain rescue personnel for the RAF based on Anglesey, RAF Valley, where I got into my pre-hospital care and medical training and became a search and rescue paramedic. And I started to get more into the mental health side of it and the positive mental well-being side, just by chance through doing medical courses. And then from there, I wanted to change from being an engineer in mountain rescue to flying on aircraft as a non-commissioned aircrew, which is something the Air Force have. So I applied to do that, and I became a helicopter crewman, and I've been on the Chinook force for the last 15 years. So in 25 years, getting all the way to where I am now. And I'm now the school for Chinook flying. I'm now the rear crew leader for that. And aside from that, I've been 25 years in the Air Force, and 23 years of my time in the Air Force has been dedicated to volunteering. So mountain rescue was volunteering, also Armed Forces First Responding was volunteering. And where I am now is the chairman of our brand new village, Britain in Bloom group. It's a community-led gardening club which meets regularly and provides horticultural platform for people who are maybe isolated or want to get involved in the community and volunteer and help others out. And we recently were awarded gold last year in the Britain in Bloom competition, which is quite a rarity for an organisation that is only 5 years old. So that's my horticultural side. I didn't really know absolutely anything about gardening until about 7 or 8 years ago, and then I got into Britain in Bloom. But I've also become a trustee of Veterans Growth, which for me is a perfect match of horticulture and supporting veterans, those who've served.
Can you tell me a bit more about is it called a garden village?
Yeah, that's right. So Crest Nicholson is the main builder, and they've introduced a garden village concept, and it's located in North Swindon as their prime site. So it's Tadpole Garden Village, a brand new village which has 60% is, I'd say, parks, nature, wildlife, trails and things like that, including space for allotments as well. So the emphasis is on creating a village with a lot of greenery, a lot of green space, and encouraging people to integrate with wildlife. So 60% of our village is that. We got the allotment gifted to us by the local management agency to create a community allotment plot. And then from there, really, we formed, in this brand new community, we formed this gardening club, which has got around 1,000 members on social media, and we have a committee as well. So it's really, really taken off.
That's fantastic. Is that just a one-off village, or are there more around the country?
There's more around the country, but I think this is the biggest one that they've built so far. I know they've got a lot more developments, and the emphasis is on green space and allotments as well. So yeah, there's quite a few being built in the country, and some that are already been built and finished. But Tadpole Garden Village was like, I guess, Crest Nicholson's grand idea, and it's only just really being finished, being completed. So it's like a 10-year project.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So you mentioned, obviously, you didn't have a background in gardening. How have you learnt? Is it just as you've gone along?
Yeah, really. I've just been cuffing it, to be honest with you. So I got together with my friend about 7 years ago. He's ex-army. He was a major in the army, and he is really into his horticulture. And when I floated the idea, because he's my neighbour, we thought about entering the village into Britain in Bloom. I knew very little about it apart from the odd bit of gardening in London. where we used to live. So what we did is we decided to get that community allotment up and running and grow on plants, fruit and vegetables for like homeless soup kitchens, for local nursing homes, and also for local charities, as well as village planters. And I just learned a lot through that. And I also learned through our gardening meets. We had a lot of people with horticultural experience, and I started to learn from them. And it was really interesting. Within the first 12 months, I learned so much, not just from allotments, but also from general planting, from a little bit of landscaping as well, because we built a memorial in the village. So we had to do quite a bit of hard landscaping. And then I thought at some point, well, I'd really like to know a lot more about horticulture. But there's a lot of maybe bad habits in horticulture, and I wanted to know how to do things properly, how to, properly setting up sowing seeds, propagating and that, which I'd learned through osmosis, really. So I decided to enroll on a RHS level 2 practical, and it was a part-time course, and I did that at Laycock College. And that was brilliant. That taught me everything that I'd done already, but it taught me how to do it. I guess I say properly, I just started off very basic and built me up to a more advanced stage. And that's where I sort of started to learn properly about horticulture.
You mentioned, obviously, you've got nature incorporated into the village, or spaces for nature. When you allotment garden, do you find there's a conflict between managing for production and managing for wildlife?
Yeah, I guess so. The thing is with us, we're trying to go down the route of not thinking of pests as pests, and also thinking about going for peat-free, and a lot of stuff, I guess, wouldn't do very well with peat-free, and also thinking about sustainability and reducing wastage. So there's those constant challenges, I guess, all the time with sustainability and making sure that we're doing the right thing in terms of it conflicting with work on the allotment.
So, given your kind of background and career, what actually sparked the gardening interest? Can you pinpoint it to a moment?
I think for me, with my mental health struggles, I've always wanted to be really active and keep my mind active and help me compartmentalise my struggles. And I found when I started to get into community work, that was a complete change away from anything to do with work or even family life. It was something I could concentrate on, which had no relation to anything outside of my normal day, really. And when I started to generate this idea of community gardening, bear in mind I didn't know an awful lot about horticulture, I found for me the ability to just be out in the open and the outdoors, which I've loved through my life. But being able to work with people and like sowing seeds and watching seeds grow and plants come on and potting on plants, and also seeing in the village where we plant hanging baskets and village planters, just to see them coming up through the year and having such a positive impact. I think for me, it's been a real key to me coping with my mental health issues. So definitely the community engagement, and also horticulture in itself, just being able to be out in the outdoor space and being amongst wildlife and just being able to like concentrate all your efforts on one particular task with no other distractions. I think it's a really, really good way of taking your mind away from elsewhere.
I couldn't agree more. And you mentioned your mental health issues. I think that there is a perceived stigma around mental health in a lot of disciplines, a lot of workplaces. It's not just the military, it's across the board. We feel the need to bottle things up a lot of the time. We don't talk about it. Are you happy to share some of the challenges that you've faced?
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 mental health disorders like linked together and then one separate one. So for me, from a very early age, I've suffered with an eating disorder, and mainly through body dysmorphia. So having a really unhealthy relationship with my body and seeing myself and my body in a not so nice light, as in I think I look like I'm overweight. That's what it looks like to me. And I really struggle with that, and I'm really conscious. And a lot of the time with my eating disorder, it's driven from binge eating. There's a classic saying of, I eat because I'm sad and I'm sad because I eat. That's kind of like the vicious circle that I'm in. And I'm conscious all the time of what my intake is and how I look in myself. So from that side, it's been from a very early age all the way through my life. And I was really worried about opening up, not just to the medical chain, but also to friends and family, because males suffer with eating disorders, but it's not something that, they're happy to talk about. And for me, talking about it, I'm just really important trying to spread that message that it's absolutely fine to be open about it. And I think I was really worried about approaching anyone from the medical side because for the fear of me taken out of my job. as a aircrew instructor. And actually, when I did speak to the doctors, nothing like that ever happened. I was just given some support, cognitive behavioural therapy or CBT, and also some signposting as well to charities that can help with eating disorders. So the big message for me is to talk about it and seek professional help, because I've been given some great initiatives to try and help me with my eating disorder. And then the second one really is sort of generated from a really nasty incident out in Afghanistan back in 2013, and ended up with PTSD, and went through the Defence Mental Health Department, the Defence Centre of Mental Health, DCMH we call it, and had to deal with that and just compartmentalising that. The incident I think about on a weekly basis, but actually I can compartmentalise it really well. And in particular, November is a really emotional time of year because of the lead up to Remembrance. It's quite difficult to come to terms with, and also to think about that incident all the time. So for me, you'll notice if you follow me on social media, I'm quite active in terms of horticulture, and I try and get out there, and it helps me compartmentalize that incident and put it to the side. Like, for instance, like this year, it's 80th anniversary of D-Day, so 4,414 Allied troops lost their lives on D-Day. So this year I've tried on station and in the village to plant 4,414 spring bulbs. And that has definitely taken my mind away from things for several hours.
So sort of sticking not so much with the gardening, but with the military side of it, and indeed any job where it's kind of you're living the lifestyle and your job involves you moving around, it involves you eating away from home. Is there a part of the military lifestyle, and like I say, any lifestyle where you're moving around and transient and you're kind of at the mercy of other people for your food supply sometimes? Does that exacerbate the issues that you face, do you think?
I would have said in my earlier years it probably did, because I was moving around a lot more. I'm more UK based now, so for me personally it's not too bad. And I think the military, the way it's shifted, has gone towards more healthy eating, or being aware of the calorific value of food. I think it's had quite a keen focus on that for a long time now. So from that side of things, it's just my personal battle to eating healthily. There are healthy options out there for me, but it's very easy for me to sit behind my desk over lunchtime to crack on with work and not practice what I preach and go out and exercise or just get away from the desk. I think it's that, for me, is one of my downfalls. I will end up eating at my desk, and it'll be like comfort eating. When I get home, I'll log back on in the evening sometimes, and I'll just sit there and probably have something to eat and something to drink, like a cup of tea and biscuits and stuff. There's stuff that I don't really need at that time, but it's at unsociable hours as well. So from that side of things, my military life being really busy at my rank and in my role, I just don't pull myself out of that and give myself a bit of space, really. But that's just personally on me.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of way my brain was thinking with that question was, if you have a plot of land, it connects you to that space. And if you're growing food, you've got the opportunity to eat seasonally. You can see what's coming. You can plant things that you like. But if you're not always around, and again, with your job, I know you move around a lot. How do you manage an allotment that's kind of a base, a food producing base, when you're not there?
So for me, when I'm not there, we have a team of volunteers that will look after that. We have a monthly gardening meet-up anyway, but there's a team of volunteers, not just in the committee, that will manage the allotment. So the allotment is a community allotment. It's not just my allotment. I don't grow everything. People come in and grow what they want, and also harvest it when they want as well. So it's very much, for me, was setting up the community allotment so people have the ability to go and use that. In our allotments, we have like 40 allotment plots. And there's a massive waiting list, and people, it's really important, especially for children, to encourage them into horticulture and getting used to allotments, so giving them the opportunity to grow their own food. So the community allotment is there for exactly that, if people want to come along and grow what they want, really. So for me, I don't have a day-to-day running of the allotment or managing or harvesting food. It's very much down to the community.
Yeah, that's a nice collaborative way to manage things so stuff doesn't get overlooked. But going back to the food issue and making that connection between what you grow and what you eat, has that been helpful for you?
Yes, in terms of my mental health disorder and eating more healthily, for sure. And I would say I'm more into homegrown food, or harvesting that, rather than, I guess, like stuff from the shop, ultra-processed food, organic. So yeah, anything just that I can grow on in the allotment. It has helped change my attitude towards food, if that makes sense.
It totally does. Yeah. I think it makes you look at food in a new light. I always kind of make the joke here at the charity that we've given, and I will use Jason as an example, our founder, because he, I think, once said to me, I've never eaten a raw strawberry, or something equally, unbelievable. But there was something that he just hadn't eaten raw. And, there are times when I say to people, would you like to take that home? And they say, I don't really know what to do with that. But if I give them a jar of chutney, then they come back the next week and say, can I have another one? Because it's that kind of turning it from something that you don't necessarily recognise or know what to do with into something that looks less like the raw version of that veg.
You're absolutely right. And I think it's really important from the community side. We have a really good, young demographic. I think it's great. So our average age is 35 to 44 in terms of our volunteers. But whenever we do anything, we ask if you want to bring your kids along as well, and getting the relationship for the children with food as well. And there's nothing better, I think, Sunday roast, pulling some potatoes out of your allotment and they're still warm, you're carrying them home, right? And then you cook them straight away there and then. But like you say, give an example with Jason with the strawberries and stuff as well. And it's trying to get kids involved in those sort of activities to maybe understand and eat healthy as well.
Yeah, it's an amazing job, and what an incredible village to live in. Probably people listening are going to go away and look up the house prices, because it sounds like idyllic. But that's all the kind of nice side of it. Are there ever times when it's tricky to manage because there is that community involvement and people come along with different ideas, different end goals?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think for me, I've learned so much because I'm in a position of leadership and management in the military, and the military rank structure, I guess, is very easy to fall back on if you need to get something done. Whereas with civilians, with people who are volunteers, you've got to be really careful because they're giving up their time. And you can get the odd conflict. Maybe there's a conflict between a couple of people in the group. But I think I'm really lucky with the people I work with. They're all community focused, and they're looking at the sort of outward mindset, the bigger picture of growing fruit and veg, and it's not just for them, it's growing it for homeless soup kitchens. We're growing on plants for the village to hopefully make that look more appealing in the village, or to donate to local nursing homes and charities. So it's really good from that side of things. But there are quite a few challenges, and I would also say there isn't a lot of money out there. A lot of the old Britain in Bloom groups were relying on a lot on the council. Local councils helping them out with watering or with plants and with funding. There's not a lot of that around now. And I would say the biggest difficulties is, and you will know this well from a charity point of view, is finding organisations and fundraising avenues. And I think for me, the National Lottery has been huge. We wouldn't have been able to do half of what we've done without lottery funding or local grant funding. So they're the challenges from the organisation point of view. But yeah, the working relationships, some people get on, some people don't get on, but I think we managed to find a happy medium.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad, because that can be tricky. Anytime there are people involved, there's the potential for conflict. You are right. We at the charity have lots of lovely funders, but the National Lottery have been a big support. So they're doing a good job on that front. I just wanted to go back to something you said actually about obviously being in the military, then the sort of physical activity is a big part of your job there and it's a kind of requirement. But is gardening an exercise without really being exercise, do you think?
In the military or in general?
In general, yeah. I mean, before you know it, you've done 2 hours in the garden and you feel like you've done a workout and you've not really realised.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is the other beauty of gardening, is that not just taking your mind away from things, but it's also incredible for exercise, getting your heart rate up, bit of vigorous digging on the allotment, or actually when we came to plant those D-Day bulbs, the easiest way of planting all these bulbs en masse is to be digging out sort of large, trench-like areas, and you're doing that for a few hours. It's fairly rigorous, and it's a really good workout as well. But it's a workout that you can do either on your own or socially, which is great, and you can do it in the outdoors and amongst nature, so it can be really peaceful. So from that side of things, yeah, it comes with a lot of benefits, but certainly the physical side of it is really important. And I guess something with our community as well, we look at making all of our projects accessible. So we understand some people can't do a lot of the rigorous exercise, but we also try and get them concentrate on their mobility. Maybe they're able to be in a position where they can, just either potting on plants or propagating. So we have a reduced mobility potting bench up there in the community greenhouse as well. So it's stuff like that, just getting yourself out and even a little bit of exercise. But for me, I definitely find it is probably the number one physical fitness drive for me. It's the one thing that keeps me physically active over anything else. Less time in the gym and more time gardening for me.
That's definitely the way forward. Yes, quite right to mention, obviously, there are physical barriers to participation. Thinking about your mental health and the various things that you've had challenges around, if you were speaking to somebody in a similar position, and I'm going to put you on the spot now because it's going to require you to kind of, I think, dig deep, but if you were speaking to somebody who was in a similar position facing the, the same sort of issues that you are, if you could say one thing that might spark with them as to why gardening is a good thing to do, to get involved in, and how it could help, what would that be?
The biggest thing for me is it's a distraction. It's a welcome distraction. So to deal with mental health, biggest thing for gardening for me is it doesn't have anything to do with your work, even to your family life, private life at the side. You, at that moment, at that time, you're just concentrating on a task. It's something that you enjoy, so it's a hobby and interest. Something that you enjoy. You're out in the outdoor space and you're doing something you enjoy. It is a welcome distraction that helps compartmentalise your mental health. And I go back to my previous point. I think the beauty of gardening is you can either do it on your own or you can do it socially as well. So that's the biggest take from me as to why I think people who are struggling with mental health should look into gardening. It is something that can distract you in a really positive way.
Thank you very much to Pete for speaking openly and sharing how much gardening has made a difference to his life and the community around him. And thanks to you for listening. If you like this episode, I recommend checking out episode 286, Natural Happiness, and episode 145, Therapy Gardening. You can download or listen to the podcast direct from the website rootsandall.co.uk. Please also check out my Patreon, where you can make a one-off donation or take out a monthly subscription to help support the podcast. Because if you enjoy the show, please help it continue. I also have a GoFundMe where you can make a one-off donation. Even a one-off donation of £1 helps, and I'll be really grateful for your support. So please go to Patreon or GoFundMe and search for Roots and All Podcast.